Hey everybody, welcome back to On Stage, Off Stage. I'm your host, George Sapio, and this is episode number 178, June of 2024. Our guests this month are Isaiah St. Cyr, Enoch Chapman, and Montana Miller, all members of NOTA, which stands for Natives of the Apocalypse. They're a theater company from Santa Fe, New Mexico. In August of 2023, they put on their first show, a run of Lyle Kessler's play Orphans. But they did it with an indigenized twist. We're talking about the play Orphans. Lyle Kessler wrote this way back in 1983. You guys are a startup company. Well, you were a startup company last year. Talk to me about why you picked this particular play. First of all, tell me something about the play itself so the audience knows what the play is about. And then tell me why, out of every other play you could have picked, you went with this one.
That's a great question. So I'm Enoch. I'll answer the question. When we started looking at scripts, we got together. There's four of us. We got together, or five of us. We got together, sat down, and said, "Okay, what do we want to do? Where do we want to look at?" Well, there's three of us who are actors. Let's see what we can do to find a three-person script. And so we ordered probably about 20 or so 3-minute shows. And the one that really struck a chord with us was Orphans. Orphans is about two brothers who end up trying to get ahead in life by kidnapping a third party, and hilarity ensues, I guess is a good way of saying it. They form a bond. There's a lot of other themes inside of it, but pretty much it's about two brothers who are out on their own, one a little bit more street smart, one a little bit more innocent, and the kidnapping of a third party. And what was interesting for us as we were reading it, we, like the actors read it. They all read it in different voices, and we had change up with characters. But this one play ended up being the one that we kept coming back to out of all the other scripts that we read. It was just, wow, let's revisit Orphans again. Okay, cool. Let's revisit Orphans again. And I want to say we started the process of this all. Our production was in August of last year, and we started the process of this all, I think, the year beforehand. So August of 2022 is when we actually started working on what do we want to do, where do we want to go, and Orphans was just something that we always came back to. The other nice thing about Orphans was, as we were looking at it, we kept coming up with ideas of, well, okay, so Lyle's saying this here, but this is very specific to Chicago, Philadelphia. It's very specific to like white audiences. What if we were to change it to something that natives would associate to? For example, one of the brothers eats a lot of tuna fish and mayonnaise. It's a big thing inside the script in terms of what the brother's eating. Well, tuna fish and mayonnaise is not something that a lot of natives kind of relate to. So we said, what if we turned that into something like Spam and ketchup? And we started this path of, what if we just added this one word? Or what if we just tweaked this one idea or concept? And in doing so, it turned it from a very Caucasian-oriented production into a very native-centric production. And that actually started spawning us on this idea of indigenizing scripts. Like, what does that mean? How does it look? And where do we go to from here?
Okay. Changing scripts is always tricky. What was the permission process like for doing that? Because I know a lot of playwrights are, my script is inviolable, you can't change a word kind of thing. Changing it from one culture to another. What was that like?
And so that's actually a really good question. We reached out, or we tried to reach out many times to Lyle and to see what permission was available and what wasn't available. Our goal inside of the entirety of it was to not change any direct words or anything that was the pureness of what his words were, other than maybe an ancillary idea. Like I said, tuna fish and mayonnaise, Spam and ketchup. It doesn't change the theme. It doesn't change the mode. I mean, it's just very little things. And so because we actually were never able to get like a full permission based from Lyle, we decided let's make sure that Our settings are us. If we are going to tweak something, it's not going to be a script tweak of any major drasticness. We're not changing any words. So all of his words outside of like I said, like some of these little ancillary ideas are pure. The only things we changed, to be honest about it, was he has a thing in there that talks about loafers, and we changed loafers to moccasins, which are very similar in structure. We changed the tuna fish. We changed that to spam. We did change the location to Sioux City, Iowa, which is right next to a reservation, instead of having it be in Philadelphia. So there was that one city change, but we left all the other names. So all the streets are the same, all the other locations that he talks about are the location of the city. And then the other thing that we changed that was kind of a big deal to us was the reference of the books. Inside of it, he talks about Count of Monte Cristo, Moby Dick, and there was another book, I can't remember exactly off the top of my head. And we changed those to Native American authors. So Ceremony by Leslie Marmon Silko, and Without Words by, oh my goodness, his name fell out of my head. But we changed it to Native American authors so that it was very Native American centric. So that was a lot of what we did, was setting locations. So we actually had a TP in one of our set productions. We had a lot of blankets, some other like pottery and other things like that. So it looked a lot more native in terms of the setting was.
Right.
Yeah, but nothing in terms of we want to alter the script so that if Lyle was to see what we did, he would be incredibly bad. Because truth is we tried, but we never found out. But it was such a good script. It's such a powerful script. I thought it was
right. Well, I'm worried about the legal issue because you've actually changed a script. You've changed words in a script, and the thing about playwriting, which differs from movie making and such, is that you cannot. All right. There are legal ramifications.
Yeah. So we actually talked with the licensing when we licensed the production, okay. And said this is what we're doing, and they said, well, we'll reach out, and as long as we don't hear anything, we're okay. Okay. So we actually did work with the licensing company with it. And our hope was to try to work with the author, but he responded. But we did get permission through the licensing department to do it.
Okay, so that makes it official. That makes it all legal. Yay, we can keep going. Okay. So honestly, I'm sitting here thinking, oh boy.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I noticed on your website, you've got a couple more productions coming up, one of which is Romeo and Juliet, which is public domain and has been altered and redone. And oh my gosh, the things that have not been done to this play probably don't even exist. Right. So you're going to be doing one of that. But we'll talk about what you're going to be doing later on as we go. So talk to me about the cast and crew. Who was on stage? Who was acting? Who directed this?
This is Isaiah. So because we're a new company and everything, our resources, and as opposed to what we could do as terms of like the cast and crew, we were very limited. So this was an all-around production put on by ourselves. We got the funding for it. We did all the legwork of organizing all this together along with the rehearsals and everything. So this was a year's process. And originally this play was supposed to be done December of 2022. Then it got pushed to February of 2023. Then the summer, which hence to August of last year. And so with that being, just because we're all students and we're all full-time students, and so we're in the performing arts program. And so here at school, our department puts on they try to put on several productions throughout the year. And so with everything surrounding that, this production kept getting pushed more and more and more. And so
where are you guys matriculating? Where are you going to school?
We are going to school at the Institute of American Indian Arts in Santa Fe, New Mexico.
Okay.
So yeah, so once we got everything together and got a date projected, which was in the summer of last year, we already had our cast pretty much made out because we knew as a company we were probably going to have to put in a lot more legwork ourselves to get this done. And so we were able to rely on each other in terms of the casts. And so, like Enoch said, roles within this play kind of switched around a lot. And so once we got all that put together, we started going through rehearsals in the summer. And Enoch directed a lot of it. He did a lot of the staging. Montana helped a lot with the props that we used on stage. He and his family had to build a doorway for us so that when we come into the apartment, we had something to come through. And so a lot of this was put on ourselves. We did a lot of the legwork, a lot of the manpower was put on by ourselves, or either our close relatives who were willing to help us. And so it was just an all hands on deck, pretty much project with how we got.
I just love startup theater companies. They get everybody to get together. You got a hammer? You got $12? Can you help us get food? And it's there's a romance to the startup companies that you don't really find with the more established ones. And I think these are the experiences that people tend to remember later on in their careers. So,
yeah, this was just a lot of trial and error is what it really was, and just seeing what did work for us throughout this first time around and what didn't. And how we went through our funding, we went through, what was the name of it?
Kickstarter.
Yeah. So that was a process within itself, because we had to keep sharing that, pushing that ourselves to get that we needed. And so there were just a lot of things at play that we had to focus on, along with, knowing the script. And so it was an interesting process. And like I said, it was trial and error, and it just, gave us that experience, to look forward to, moving ahead.
Yeah, a lot of basic theater productions, first starting off theater productions, are trial and error, and some of them are hilarious. You talk about it later, and it's just laughs. And then there were those moments where it's like, oh my gosh, what did we do?
That's usually for us. It was definitely as we kept moving forward, we're going, oh my goodness, like, do we still want to do this? Okay. We still want to do this? Okay, sure. Okay. Finally, when it came down to the point where, like, yes, we want to do this, we want to get this done. And so let's just figure out how to make it work. And it was a lot of asking for a lot of help, which is great because a lot of people came out in support of us, which was really great to see.
I think it's wonderful, not only for the folks involved directly, the actors, producers, directors, and that sort of thing, but it brings in the community and establishes. The good thing about most shows is by the last week by the cast party, you become a family, and you've shared something that nobody else in the quote, I'm making air quotes here, folks, real world will understand. Only other theater people will understand, and this is why they keep coming back, because they want to keep becoming part of that little insular family. But reaching out to friends and family, reaching out to non-theater people to get involved in this sort of thing, to make it work, that just extends the family a little bit more, and it makes it more, I think, of a beautiful experience for the folks involved. Great. So at one point in your Kickstarter video, you said you were refinding ourselves and the things we are missing. Let's visit that for a couple of minutes, because it's an identity thing. Theater is always an identity thing. You find yourself as an actor, you find yourself through the characters that you pick up. And I think you gravitate towards certain characters because there's something in you that moves you towards picking that or wanting that. So how do you find out things? What did you find out about yourselves through this process?
So,
Not to get all touchy-feely and everything like that, but
yeah. Well, but it's a really interesting question, especially in terms of like Native American theater. So,
yeah.
quick little back history of Native American theater, right? Native American theater has been around for roughly 12,000 years. I
Okay.
mean, if you want to talk about it, right? I mean, the terms of what we do with ceremonies, what we do with celebrations, what we do. I mean, a lot of the stuff is things that are repetitive, things that we do over and over again. There's certain characters that get played. So Native American theater has been around for a really, really long time. But when you think about that in terms of what you consider American theater or modern day contemporary theater, Native American theater is not seen as anything by the mainstream audience. They just don't recognize it. We've been around here forever, but we don't get any recognition at all in terms of, oh, hey, maybe we should have a show of Native Americans somewhere in LA or somewhere in New York.
Yeah.
There's things that are doing really well there, like Spider Woman Theater, and Minnesota, there's a new Native American Playwright House. I mean, there's a lot of theaters out there, but we are trying to say, how do we find ourselves in this theatrical world where a lot of people don't recognize what we can do and what we can offer? So throughout this experience, it was really interesting looking at a piece and saying, can we tell a Native story through another person's lens, a non-Native lens? Can we tell a Native story?
That was going to be my next question. Out of all the things you could have picked, why did you go with something that was non-Native? Please go ahead.
Well, and I mean, here's a really simple answer for that. For hundreds of years in America, and I don't want to get political, so I apologize for this, a lot of stuff has been taken from us.
Sure, yeah.
Is it okay for us to take something back?
I don't see why not.
So then, if that's the case, then we took a script back. I mean, granted, we changed it slightly. We didn't do anything to adjust the theme, the words. Everything is his words, but we modified it a little bit so that we can have a showcase of something that says we can do stories that just aren't our stories, but universal stories, stories that can fit to everybody. And when you look at the stuff that's in public domain and things that are not in public domain and options that are out there, there are potentials to be able to do a lot of Native American playwrights and new shows. But there's also the idea of, will the audience accept that? Are we going to get a good audience for people who don't know who the playwright is? I mean, as a startup, it's really difficult to say, hey, we're going to start putting out new Native American playwrights all the time, because no one's going to come see it because they're not familiar with it. So let us put out something that people are familiar with, something that is shown to be a very well accepted piece, and let us indigenize it. Let us turn this into something that is a universal story. And I think there's a lot of power in that to start gaining acceptance. One step forward is for us to have people be like, that was a great production. We can't wait to see what your next production is, which is something that we've heard from feedback from people who saw the show. We can't wait to see what your next production is. And that's going to get accepted.
I want to get to that in a second, but I think you guys did it the right way. I mean, who is this playwright? I've never heard of them. Are they any good? Is always the question when you bring up somebody new. And to keep a theater company going, you have to put butts in seats. And you have the butts in seats means mouths with words. And the more mouths with words puts more butts in seats. And hopefully it's a cycle that keeps feeding upon itself. More Native American playwrights, more Native American theater companies telling stories is what we need. And as far as indigenizing things, you can look through an encyclopedia of plays and find that the problems, the issues, the things that people need to get through, the crises, are universal. They're dressed differently. The flavors are different. The situation is different. The history time is different. But once it comes down to the same few things that people are still trying to sort out, finding themselves, discovering who they are through characters and stories that other people have told, which pertain to what your particular situation is. So yeah. So what was the audience reaction like? How did that go?
Hold on real quick, Mr. George. This is Montana speaking.
Okay.
I just want to add on too about Enoch and Isaiah was what really helped indigenize this play was the costume arrangement and how they were able to bring across multi-native ethnicities and different tribes, as in the moccasins were made from Kiowa women and the hats were made. So with Isaiah and Enoch, it was good they created a lot of bridges because there's over 560 federally recognized tribes, and they did a good job as incorporating as much as they could.
Yeah.
And they didn't take any shortcuts. And when they said the relocation for the Sioux City, Isaiah was able to get Sioux City newspapers all the way down so people could actually see what it looked like. And to the fact that even though we talk about like very indigenous people, we also have non-indigenous folks that have supported us during this production, like our lighting crew. Catherine, she did an amazing job for us. And we work not just only with natives, but anyone that's just open to theater as well. That's just the passion.
Yeah, that's one of the things you mentioned in the emails we shared back and forth. The different tribes that some of you belong to, and it's one of the things that most white Americans recognize on the surface, that there are different, but we have no idea. We know the ones that have been in all the movies. Okay, and some of us who do pay a little bit more attention than others recognize that there is a grand diversity that has largely escaped the consciousness. So by including the different aspects of each, you've reached out to a whole wide spectrum, which is beautiful because inclusivity is the key to moving forward, I think. So did they like it? What were the reviews like? How'd it go? I mean, how'd it feel to be on? How did it feel opening night? I want to know about that. Besides terrifying.
Well, it's definitely one of those things we don't necessarily know what it's going to be like. We just hope that the experience is going to be good.
Yeah.
We had amazing response in terms of attendance for us. The theater that we're in only seated 70 people, so it's a small black box theater. It's not like we're a major theater by any means. And opening night, I believe we had 60 some odd people show up. So for a first production, first new company, that was great. And it wasn't all just friends and family, which is good. We had a number of the directors and people from the surrounding theater area. Santa Fe has a really large theater community. It's really great. There's about 21 different theaters here. We had about 4 or 5 different directors from the surrounding area come from the bigger established production houses here, which is great.
Yeah, that is great.
People really loved the show. We had a great response every single night, laughs in different sections, a great applause, and at the end of it. But I have to say that my favorite review out of all of it, and this was one of Montana's family members. So it definitely was a family member. But at the end of the show, and they were there for the final performance, they were sitting in the audience as I was cleaning up the stage as I did every night. And I walked over to them and I said, "How did you like it?" And they just looked at me with a big smile. And she said, "You told a story for us."
Oh, that's nice.
For us. And I can't tell, I mean, regardless of what other people say, good, bad, I don't know. Yeah. But that comment of, we were able to tell a story for natives from a person who's not indigenous, and we did it in a way that she was happy with, made me go, we're doing the right thing. I mean, reviews be damned, whatever, and apologize for that. But I mean, that one person, that one message said we're doing something right. So
reviews in print are great. They're wonderful. You can stick them on the wall. You can Xerox them and, fax them off to grandma. But the faces of the people in the audience that particular night, those immediate reactions, especially when they wait to come up to you because you're talking to somebody else, but they wait to come up to talk to you, to say something good, to say something nice, to congratulate you, it means you're doing something incredibly right. You're giving them a gift.
Good thing too is that her first language isn't English, so the fact that she was able to, and that's her first theater performance she ever witnessed.
Wow.
A lot of my family, so a lot of them don't. Their first language is Deneh Bazad. As for example, for people out there that have never heard it before, so for them to be able to understand and get the message behind Lyle Kessler and the whole art, and be able to like feel for these characters, it was pretty cool. I didn't really, even though I'm the fan, but I never thought of them as actually come to theater. I'm the first in my family, and it was like, wow, all right.
Yeah, that's the same story with a lot of folks whose culture and upbringing did not include theater the way a lot of white kids grew up with it. Excuse me. I grew up with it, and I took to it like nobody's business. But so many other people, as you know, as I grew up and I started to do productions and things, it was like a foreign thing. I've never been to theater. Why would I go? What is there for me to listen to? What is there for me that's, you know, and that's the problem. What is there for you that's relevant? So, yeah, good for you guys. It sounded like an absolutely magical and wonderful experience. Congratulations. You should be proud of yourselves. Okie dokie. What's next? Oh, hold on. Before we go to what's next, Natives of the Apocalypse. Who came up with that name, and why Apocalypse?
It's the apocalypse for natives right now. Okay, if you think about it, it's sad to say, but natives are living in their apocalypse.
Yeah, so,
in some form.
Yeah. So originally there was 5 of us, and I really liked the idea of having the 4 on a horseback and me running behind with just like a handful of stuff. And 4 riders on horses just made me think of the 4 riders of the apocalypse. The more we started thinking about it, it actually made a lot of sense because of what Montana just said. Right? Native Americans have gone through. I think it's easy to say they've gone through hell and back.
Yeah.
Though kind of a ostracized group of individuals. As much as people like to say, hey, you guys finally won an Oscar for Killers of the Flower Moon. It's like, okay, we've been acting for quite a while, and we've had a lot of other big things going on. And thanks for recognizing us for a little bit, which is great. But it's also one of those things that, like, we are by far the most unrepresented and unrecognized groups of minorities within North America, which is very interesting because, we were the first inhabitants. So apocalyptic ideas are not foreign to us. And I think for us, the idea of coming from an apocalyptic state into rebuilding ourselves is where we're coming from. That's kind of where we're going. We're rebuilding. We're putting our words out there. We want Natives of the Apocalypse to realize that it's not just the 4 guys. It's everybody. It's our stories that we're coming back. It's retelling who we are. It's reclaiming identities. It's all the stuff that empowers people to rebuild from the ashes into something that's meaningful and worthwhile. And so that's really what Natives Apocalypse is kind of transformed into, kind of like what Montana said. We're in the apocalypse right now, but we're rebuilding from it. We are fighting to pave a path to allow other things to grow.
Good. I'd be very, very interested to see what happens post-apocalypse, because the traditional 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, they tear everything down. Right? And it'd be so interesting to see what pops up from what's left.
Yeah.
Whose voices are we going to hear? And that's going to be, I think that's going to be quite revelatory. Speaking of voices that we're going to hear, what's up for you guys next? What are your plans? What shows you got coming?
So as of right now, like I said, we're still in school. Most of us, we got about another year left of school before we're done. As of right now, we just got through setting up our company. This past December, we got awarded a $10,000 grant from a theater company in New York. And so we set up our company, and we're set up as for profit right now. And just for that reason being, you know, nonprofit, it regulates us to a lot of things. And, you know, what we have planned right now, for profit would give us a lot of flexibility. And by that being, right now, I'm in the process of finishing up our business plan. But some of the services, we're not only going to be strictly just a theater production company. We're going to be offering services to Native American communities, not just here in Santa Fe, not just the local area, but throughout the nation. And so some of the services we're offering is
Workshops.
Personal development, public speaking, employment. Those reasons being, you know, there's a lot of unemployment on the reservations in a lot of Native American communities all around. And public speaking, just me personally interacting with Natives throughout the country in my travels, not a lot of Natives are very confident in speaking publicly in front of non-Native audiences. Right. And so, you know, if we could, you know, utilize what we know and channel it back to these communities, you know, try to upbring some of them. And one of the other services we're offering is after school programs. And so due to like, there's really hardly close to any after school programs that offer, you know, Native youth services. And so, you know, as of right now, we're looking at locations, you know, to set up shop so that we can offer, you know, acting, you know, after school programs, you know, tech lighting, music, vocal lessons. And so there's, you know, there's one service that we're offering to the community. The other is consulting. And specifically that being is, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Native American powwow celebrations that occur, you know, frequently throughout the U.S. throughout the years. East Coast, there's not very many on your side. And so since COVID, since the pandemic, there has been a number that just haven't, you know, started back up for whatever reason, whether it's political, budgeting, because to put these celebrations on, you need a committee. And so it gets very complex for each tribe that's putting on a celebration. And so, you know, what our goal is to consult with them and bring in our own committee that we have established to take the bearing off them and do the legwork for them to help start up these celebrations again. And the last being productions. And so we're still, you know, in the process of figuring out what we're going to do next. We do have something in mind for the summer. We're going to do that locally here in Santa Fe. But like you touched on, we are looking at Juliet for a huge production. And so that's probably not going to be ready until 2025. Yeah. And so it's a very big production with a big cast. And so what we're going to do with that is, like I said, indigenize it. And instead of two different families, we're going to use two different tribes who are at war. For the music in between, you know, in between scenes, there's a specific Native style of music that's called round dance songs. And so we can incorporate those for some of the dance segment parts. For the battling, for the sword fighting, like I said, this goes back to Native American powwow celebrations. There's a style called the men's fancy dance. And it's like more of a freestyle up-tempo dance that always gets the crowd going. So if you have free time, I would say YouTube that and look up some videos, kind of give you more of an idea of what I'm talking about. But we're going to try to use those and substitute those for the sword fighting. And so there's a lot of stuff that we're trying to work with, but it's just going to be a process. And with us still being in school and along with, you know, offering these services to Native communities, there's just a lot of stuff that needs to happen before then. And so, yeah, we kind of got our hands full right now.
It sounds like it.
what we're ultimately trying to build is a traveling troupe. And so we want to hopefully take Romeo and Juliet on the road. And
we've got some good interest from different communities who's reached out to us already because of Orphans and because of some other productions that we're putting on, saying, if you're going to do something that's very indigenous and things like that, we'd have you up here, which is great. I mean, that's exciting for us. I know for the summer, we're looking at potentially doing the female version of The Odd Couple. One of the things that is incredibly like native are aunties, and it's just the aunties getting together and talking and smack about each other and things like that. So when you read the version of The Odd Couple, it is very much like a auntie community getting together, and so there's some very, very simple things to do to turn it into a more indigenous. Again, kind of like what we did with Orphans. We don't touch the words, but we can turn it into indigenous stories by looking at some of these things and actually turning it into a cultural type of idea. So we're super excited about moving forward because we have a 5-year vision, which is a little different than a lot of other theater companies.
A 5-year, you guys are just starting out.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
Yeah, but we have a 5-year vision, 5-year plan. We have in the works, again, because we are not going down the nonprofit route, we're not strictly looking at just productions. We're looking at other types of vehicles. But the whole point for us is to try to how to say this right? Not create. It's to empower natives to tell their stories. And whatever that entails is what our focus is, whether that be a production, whether that be workshops, whether that be youth programs, whatever it is. We want more natives to tell their stories because they're needed and they should be heard, and they're great.
I really wish I could see some of these productions coming up. Maybe I'll make it up. Right now I'm in Costa Rica, so
oh wow.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, again, we have been reached out by some pretty impressive people that we didn't realize we were going to get reached out to be able to bring a production. So, if you're from New York, we might be able to bring something to there to have you come and see it.
Stay in touch. I really want to know what you guys are up for. It's the amount of work you must have put in so far, and for the results that you're getting for people from New York talking to you and people from other theater companies giving you grants and such like that. That's almost unheard of. So the work you're doing is beyond exceptional. Keep it going. Do not let up for a second. And I have 2 words for you because you are not a nonprofit. And those words are tax accountant. Needs to be an intimate member of your inner council there.
I just want to say too that what we have to offer is pretty rare on a reality level with just how many natives are actually like alive. There's we make like 2.4% of the U.S. population. So to be here now, it's amazing to know that there is an opportunity for Native theater to be here. And who knows how long that'll be here, 100 years from now. So the people that are alive now are going to actually get to say, like, I saw an authentic Native American theater with real live Native Americans. And how long will it be till you get to say that, keep saying that? And it's just the reality of what we're trying to add to history. And we want to try to make that with the theater world history, with Shakespeare, everything. So hopefully, even if we are gone, people can know too, like, let's do a Native American theater, especially for like Indian Heritage Month. Yeah. We can leave a template on how to be careful with like stories, or like just because it can be done with anyone. Like I said, we're open to anyone. So that's what I really appreciate about theater, is how
universal.
The theater is beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah. I think what you guys are doing, especially reaching out with your community programs, is what more theater should be doing, because theater is community. You have people on stage and you have an audience, and you are telling stories. And I mean, you said Native American theater goes back 12,000 years. Well, that's what it is. It's telling stories. Okay. The dance ceremonies, the sitting around a fire late at night, just catching up on the day, talking about This is what we have done for each other since the beginning of time, since we've been able to talk, is to tell stories. And we get richer. And I think the stories that you guys continue to tell will allow you to tell more indigenous stories, will allow other indigenous artists to say, this is possible. This is my story. I'm going to write this. I can make this happen. The fact that we're only 2.4 of the population isn't going to matter, because once it's out there, it's been said, and it will get spread around, and it will continue to make other people tell their stories, which is really what we need. I mean, that's really what theater is all about. It's not just entertainment. It's telling truths to people. It's saying, this is me. This is who I am. This is where I came from. And other people will find something in there that they can relate to. And you build union and you build community. And I'm on a soapbox, so. But
well, to go along with that, one of the things that we are really focused in on, especially kind of tying in what Montana said and everything else, we're really focused in on the idea of collaboration and wanting to work with other people to make stories come alive, right?
Yeah.
And one of our goals within every 2 to 3 years is to have an original NOTA production along with these other productions that people would recognize. Our very first production that we're looking at right now, that is going to be around, I believe 2026 is when we're planning on it, is all about the Winnebago tribe's origin stories and using their language and using the music and so it's a very culturally oriented production that will be able to hopefully bring around to places, because we do want to tour. We do want to continue this outreach of not just our community, but the community world at large. You know, everyone is family. We're all connected. So we want to be able to have these stories shared and told and feel like there's a universal there. So we are very much looking at this as revitalization of a voice that's lost, a reclamation of a heritage and culture that has been taken away, an announcement of who we are, as well as an open invitation for us to be together and understand. Because that's just, I mean, being native's cool. I'll just throw it out there. I love it. I'll scream from the rooftop whenever people talk to me, like, "Hey, how's it going? Enoch, I'm native." And you know, we get that from everybody. Oh, you're native? Oh, so that's cool. But yeah, we want people to know us. We want people to know us more than just Echo on Disney or you know, Killers of Flower Moon or Dance with the Wolves. We want more stories to be told, because our stories and our culture is cool. We also want to be respectful. That's the other big thing too that's vitally important, is to understand that there's a lot of respect that has to go on with the communities. There's a lot of respect that has to go on with the cultural sharing and understanding, right?
Yeah.
And so learning those different types of means of respecting each other, I think is vitally important, especially in the day and age that we're in, where we don't seem to respect each other as much at times. So
I think there should be college courses on respect and compassion. I think it would go along. It's grammar school courses anyway. Telling stories comes down to history, and not all history is pleasant to listen to. The purpose of history is to educate us by showing us what. It's a record of everything we probably could have done way better than we did in the first place. But walking in there with respect in the forefront is a brilliant way of accomplishing that. I wish you guys all the best. I have no doubt you will carry on for years and be telling stories, important stories, and reaching out to people all over the place, native and non-native, because we really need to hear more of other people's stories, not just our own. So Enoch, Montana, and Isaiah, thank you so much for being on Stage Off Stage, and I look forward to hearing about your adventures in the future.
Thank you so much. We appreciate this. Has been great. Thank you.
Hey kids, thanks for listening to On Stage Off Stage. On Stage Off Stage is produced monthly, and all of our shows can be found at onstageoffstage.org and also on Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeart, and Google Podcasts. If you enjoy what we do, please recommend us to your friends. Don't forget to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter at OnOffStage. And if you are a theater artist with an upcoming project or interest, or know of someone in the theater world who'd make good chat, by all means, send us a note at onstageoffstagepodcast@gmail.com. Our theme music is Don't Worry, Be Frappy by the composer Max Dickinson. You can find a lot more of Max's magnificent music on SoundCloud. I'm George Sapio. Thanks once again for listening, and please be kind to those with whom we share this rock. And as always, happy theatering to all of you.